All right, welcome back to this UCP-dominated province. Yay! Oops, just lost my job. So we're going to keep looking at the corporation. This is like volume 3, and we're continuing to explore the psychopathy that corporations show.
Again and again, we have the problem that whether you obey the law or not is a matter of whether it's cost effective. If the chance of getting caught and the penalty are less than it costs to comply, people think of it as being just a business decision.
And drawing the metaphor of the early attempts to fly.
Okay, so guys, this is the best part of the entire documentary. Like at a hypothetical, metaphorical sense, this is as insightful as the documentary is going to get. So there's some case studies like IBM and the Nazis that are kind of like, holy crap, moments. But this metaphor that he gives us, this is the linchpin of this documentary. So if you get this metaphor, and if you can use it in an essay, your essays are going to be impressive. So he's like, this is a metaphor, dude's going to fly. Let's just listen to him explain it, and then we're going to have to go back and really look at this metaphor.
The man going off of a very high cliff in his airplane with the wings flapping and the guys flapping the wings, and the wind is in his face, and this poor fool thinks he's flying, but in fact he's in free fall, and he just doesn't know it yet because the ground is so far away. But of course the craft is doomed to crash. That's the way our civilization is. The very high cliff represents the virtually unlimited resources we seem to have when we began this journey. The craft isn't flying because it's not built according to the laws of aerodynamics, and it's subject to the law of gravity. Our civilization is not flying because it's not built according to the laws of aerodynamics for civilizations that would fly. And of course the ground is still a long way away, but some people have seen that ground rushing up sooner than the rest of us have. The visionaries have seen it and have told us it's coming. There's not a single scientific peer-reviewed paper published in the last 25 years that would contradict this scenario. Every living system of Earth is in decline. Every life support system of Earth is in decline. And these together constitute the biosphere. The biosphere that supports and nurtures all of life, and not just our life, but perhaps 30 million other species that share this planet with us. The typical company of the 20th century, extractive, wasteful, abusive, linear in all of its processes, taking from the earth, making, wasting, sending its products back to the biosphere, waste to a landfill. I myself was amazed to learn just how much stuff the earth has to produce through our extraction process to produce $1 of revenue for our company. When I learned, I was flabbergasted. We're leaving a terrible legacy of poison and diminishment of the environment for our grandchildren's grandchildren, generations not yet born. Some people have called that intergenerational tyranny, a form of taxation without representation levied by us on generations yet to be. It's the wrong thing to do.
All right, so we're going to have to dissect that language a little bit. Can I get the lights at the back? So because I got your back like that, I typed up his speech there for you while he was giving it, because I'm super fast like that too. So in our Google Classroom now, we have a link to a document, and boom, there's his speech. That's just, did you see me typing so quickly there? So I wanted you to have the entire transcript, and actually if you go to IMDb, you can get the entire transcript for the documentary we're watching. So if you ever need to go back and you can't find stuff, just go to Internet Movie Database, IMDb, and you just figured out what IMDb stands for right there. But you can go to IMDb and you can find the quotes from the transcript. But I really want to get into the language here because, again, this quote is the main reason we're watching the documentary. And much of the language I use in class, I borrowed it from Ray Anderson. I'm not bright. I watched the documentary enough times that Ray Anderson's speech kind of sunk in. So the guy's name is Ray Anderson. That's who gave the speech. And he was the CEO of a carpet manufacturing company, corporation. And he was asked by some of his shareholders, what are we doing for the environment? And he didn't have an answer. He didn't have a plan to become basically a zero impact corporation. So when he started looking into it, this is what he ended up finding. So it begins drawing the metaphor of the early attempts to fly. And he shows us that guy. And you look at him and it's comical because you know it's not going to work. It's like, oh man, that's not going to end well. Drawing the metaphors of the early attempts to fly, the man going off a very high cliff in his airplane with the wings flapping and the guys flapping the wings and the wind is in his face. And this poor fool thinks he's flying. But, in fact, he's in a free fall. And he just doesn't know it yet. That's us. That's 2020. We're in a free fall. That we started off at the top of a very high cliff because we had not unlimited resources, but we had a lot of resources. We had a lot of coal and oil and other building blocks of the modern economy. The lifeblood of the modern economy. We had a lot of resources. So from that vantage point, it looked like we could be using these resources for the indefinite future. And it looked like we're flying. It looked like how we were organizing the global village was working. But in fact, we weren't flying because it's not sustainable. Flying is sustainable, free-falling isn't. And we were free-falling, but we didn't realize it because we started from so high up that we still thought we were flying. So a big part of this related issue 3 is sustainability. And the next twist in that essay is sustainability. Is this sustainable or do we need a paradigm shift? I'd never heard the term paradigm shift before I watched this documentary. That's where I got the term from. That's where I got the whole V-cut thing from. And it just kind of stuck. So of course the craft is doomed to crash, and that's the way our civilization is. The very high cliff represents the virtually unlimited resources we seem to have when we began this journey in the 18th century with the Industrial Revolution. The craft isn't flying because it's not built according to laws of aerodynamics and is subject to the law of gravity. So our economy, our global economy, isn't flying because it's not built to the laws of economics that are sustainable. It's not built to sustainable economics. It's built to exploitive economics. Because unfortunately at Bretton Woods they said let's cooperate, and we could have created a new world, but we ended up going back to the old world where it was just the strong feeding on the weak and not really caring about the impact on the environment. Our civilization is not flying because it's not built according to laws of aerodynamics for civilizations that would fly. And of course, the ground is still a long way away. So that's why we're not really panicking right now, because we're not going to hit the ground in 2021. We have enough oil. The age of oil will last for decades still. Decades. We have decades of oil left. We have more than decades of coal left. So we can continue to work like this for a while. And even if global warming is a thing, even if climate change is a thing, living here in Alberta, it's not going to have an impact that will cause an awakening for decades here as well. And there's signs, right? You know, California is on fire and all of these things. But at some point, we become oblivious to the signs because California seems to be on fire every year. The visionaries have seen it, and they told us it's coming. There's not a single scientific peer-reviewed paper. So what's important about that? Peer-reviewed. So I can write anything I want. I can write that the world is flat. I can write that only Irish people have the moral fiber to be proper leaders. So Ronald Reagan, greatest president of the United States history. Brian Mulroney, greatest prime minister in Canada's history, because they're Irish roots. I can write that, but if nobody reviews it and puts a check mark on it, what I'm writing isn't much better than somebody doing a rant on social media. So the whole idea of it being peer-reviewed is significant, because that adds credibility and legitimacy. So he says there's not a single scientific peer-reviewed paper in the last 25 years that would contradict this scenario. And this is huge. This is the death of birth part of the video. Every living system of Earth is in decline. Everything's getting worse. Every living system is in decline. That should be like a wow moment. Every life support system of Earth is in decline. And these together constitute the biosphere. The biosphere that supports and nurtures all of life. And not just our life, not just the 8 billion people, but perhaps 30 million other species. Not 30 million other animals, but 30 million other species. And within that, there's literally trillions of living organisms on the planet that share this planet with us. Now, before we continue, let's think of the biosphere for a second. We truly do live on a tiny blue dot. And we're searching the universe for another home. And there's thoughts that we could go and live on Mars. There's thoughts that we might even be able to go and live in the atmosphere of Venus. These are exciting things. There's planets that are in that M zone, like ours, in that habitable zone within a star like ours, that may even be more livable than our planet. But the reality is, with 2020 technology, we don't have the ability to move there. We don't have the time or the resources to transport ourselves there. And we certainly don't have the ability to set up a new civilization there. So as exciting as the future will be, in 2020 we're still stuck here on Earth. So for 2020's sake, this biosphere is the only thin, livable area in the known universe. This is it. This is the only place we can live. And we're destroying it. This should be the kick to the face moment. This is the only place, the biosphere, the only place that supports life that we know of. And we are destroying it. Why are we destroying it? So we can get a better set of shoes or a faster phone. Or so we can create a product that creates more milk and we don't need more milk. There's so much lack of logic that it's hard not to be frustrated. So that's the significance of that biosphere. So I'm not a science teacher, although obviously living in 2020 we should all be connected to science. Science is our future. But this is quite alarming. So if you are somebody that's more attuned to science, you can throw some science at me in your essay. Give me some science. Tell me why, in terms of science, we need to rethink globalization. Not the fact that we shouldn't connect, but we should rethink how we connect and why we're connected. Right now we're connecting to exploit each other. It's not sustainable. This typical company of the 20th century is extractive, wasteful, abusive, linear in all the processes. Linear. We're going to go from here to here, and the whole process is about making money. Linear. Taking from the earth, making, wasting, sending its products back to the biosphere, waste to a landfill. I myself, this is Ray Anderson, was amazed to learn just how much stuff the earth has to produce. through our extraction process to produce $1 of revenue for our company. When I learned, I was flabbergasted. So even just recently in British Columbia, there's a lot of controversy because they're cutting down some old growth trees to make wood pallets. And it's like, do we need more wood pallets? And if so, why are we cutting down these trees that are 800, 1,200 years old? Isn't there a better way? And keep in mind that my roots are, I come from a logging family. So if I look at a tree and say, maybe we should be cutting down this tree, that's pretty significant because basically I come from a family where we cut trees down. That's what we do. But even within the logging industry, there's loggers that are like, no, we're not cutting down that tree. Why don't we work on that tree? Selective logging. Or there's certain species of trees, because of their lifespan, you can't replace them. If a tree lasts for 2,000 years, it's not as simple as let's plant a new one and wait 2,000 years for it to come back. That's crazy. There's better ways to do this. And I love the ending. We are leaving a terrible legacy of poison and diminishment of the environment for our grandchildren's grandchildren. You don't have to write more, you just have to write better. This is better, right? We're leaving a terrible legacy of poison and diminishment of the environment for our grandchildren's grandchildren, generations not yet born. Some people have called that intergenerational tyranny, a form of taxation without representation. So when dear Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spent hundreds of billions of dollars so that we don't catch COVID-19 or we can slow the spread of it, hundreds of billions of dollars, nearly spent the GDP of Canada for a year, fighting it for half of a year, and really not slowing our numbers down that much, and our death rate is much higher than other countries like Germany. I say to people who support Justin Trudeau, what he's done is intergenerational tyranny. You've spent money from our grandchildren and their grandchildren that Canadians for 100 years will be paying the debt to fight a flu. We spent more fighting this flu than we did fighting the Nazis. We spent more fighting the flu than we do fighting cancer. And a lot more people have died from cancer since March. We've spent more fighting the flu than we've spent fighting an opiate addiction in Alberta, and more people have died from drug overdose in Alberta since March than from COVID-19. There are other things to focus on. And then when you start looking into it, it's frustrating to see the corporate collusion between government and policy and corporations. So which corporations are benefiting from changes in government spending? Corporations that are tied to certain political parties. So if it's Alberta policies, typically it supports Friends of the UCP, and if it's federal policies, it supports Friends of the Liberal Party. They're taking your money and your grandchildren's money, and they're basically funneling it to their friends. It's frustrating. It's theft. It's not only taxation without representation, it's theft. It's the same kind of theft that led to the French and the American revolutions. So eventually, there's going to be people that are going to be angry. That there's going to be people looking at my generation. We already have people like that. Thanks, Greta. And there's going to be people looking at your generation and basically looking at you and saying, how did you allow the planet to get like this? And how did you allow our economy to get like this? So it's a pretty important topic. So he's going to give us some other speeches, but this is it. This is a great speech. It's too long to use as an A1, but I could pull parts of it as an A1, but I really want to see some of this resonate in your essays. And you don't have to agree with them. I don't agree with them. I don't agree with everything he says. I'm not going to say I'm a climate change denier, because that's certainly not a politically correct thing to say in 2020. But there's parts of climate change that I think have been oversimplified to push an agenda. But at the same time, there's parts of this that really really gets my attention. All right, so let's continue with the documentary. Good quote though, right? Unfortunately, Ray Anderson is no longer with us. He's since passed away since the documentary from cancer. So, 1 in 2 guys, 1 in 3 girls. That's the epidemic, right? That's the pandemic. Question? The lights. I know. Yeah. Is you want to be comfortable, and your comfort is my priority. We want to make sure people in 2020 are comfortable, even if it means that people in 2120 live in absolute poverty. Let's make sure everybody's comfortable right now.
Hey, are you time traveling? Because this was written a little under a year ago. I was just.
Hey, look, we are both ahead and behind, right? Because if you factor in the fact that we are doing 2 days work every day, we should have been talking about the corporation like a week or 2 weeks ago. So am I time traveling? No, but thanks for pointing out that I didn't just type this up for you. Mr. McBride, you're a liar. You know who are liars? Psychopaths. Mr. McBride, you're a psychopath. Yeah, I'm gonna stop this video now that I call myself a psychopath, and then I'm gonna create a third version just so it's little bites. And so just look over your notes about this metaphor, and then we'll continue.